Hi guys, welcome back to my burst coin mining farm. My name is Kira, and today I'd like to talk about the motherboard that I use. I use the ASUS ROG Crosshair 6 Hero, and it's the AM4, and so I've got a Ryzen 1700 on there. I chose this motherboard mostly because of its support for USB devices, but it has a lot of other great features, and I like it because it's a flexible solution in case I want to do something else with my system. I chose the processor, the 1700 Ryzen, because it's a great price and it has a lot of power. It has 16 threads. So that allows me, again, to be flexible and to do a lot of things with my motherboard. I really like burst, but there might be other great coins in the future. So by keeping my options open, I can do a lot of different things. So what I plan to do for this video is run a couple tests. The first test is I'm going to plug a PCIe riser into my motherboard, and then I'm going to plug my video card into the riser, and I'm going to see how it affects the mining speed. As some of you might be aware, I use jminer, and that utilizes the GPU for mining speed. So I'd like to see how the change in bandwidth down from a 16 or an 8x lane down to a single lane affects the ability of the system to mine. And that can give me some more information about how the system works. The second thing that I want to do is I want to play around with the first two X16 lanes on this motherboard. The PCIe X16 lanes on this motherboard, they operate in an X8 mode when there's devices plugged into both of them. So I want to see if there is a way to improve that. I can try going into the BIOS maybe and see if there's a way to operate the first slot at X16 and the second one at maybe X4. But I don't know. So that's going to be my second experiment today. But before we get into those experiments, I want to talk a little bit about the motherboard. The motherboard has 3 X16 slots. One of them is a 3.0, the others are 2.0. And like I just mentioned, when you've got two PCIe cards plugged into the first two, they apparently run at X8. So I'd like to play around with that a little bit. The other X16 slot, which should be a revision 2 slot, shares lanes with the X1 headers on the motherboard. And so because I'm using that slot for my Sonnet Allegro Pro USB controller, I am not using the X1 PCIe lanes because I don't want there to be any sharing of bandwidth, especially when I'm trying to read USB drives. Additionally, this motherboard has 2 USB headers on the motherboard. There's a 3.1 header for USB-Cs, and there's a 3.0 header. The other reason why I like this motherboard is on the back of the motherboard, there are 8 USB 3.0 jacks, there's 4 USB 2.0 jacks, and there is 1 USB-C jack, and I'm using all of the 3.0 and the USB-C to help sustain these hard drives. Right now the rig has 25 hard drives on it, and very soon I'll be adding a few more. We're pretty close to my goal of 32 drives, and I think the system can handle it. I'm just not there yet. It takes a long time to plot the drives. Lastly, this board has 8 SATA connectors. Based on what I read from the specs, they don't seem to share data lanes with the PCIe cards, but I would like to prove that because I just don't know. Sometimes these boards can be sneaky. And I'm not really using those right now for mining. I mean, I just have my SSD plugged in and that's my main drive. But it would be interesting to see if I could plug some stuff into there and get some more bandwidth out of this system. The other thing that I'm not utilizing right now that I'd like to experiment with later is the M2 slot. The M2 slot on this motherboard can be operated as a PCIe X4 with the right gear, and apparently it's only available if you're using a Ryzen 7 processor, and luckily I am, so I really fully intend to use that. I'll let you guys know in another video how that goes. And lastly, number 2, this motherboard supports 64 gigabytes of memory, so it's great if you need to bump it up and put more memory on it. Right now I've only got 16 gigabytes of 2666 DDR4, but we'll see how it goes. Right now it's just not on my list of things to do. So I've got my riser right here, and yeah, I want to plug this in and see what's going on. But before I do that, I want to show you guys the current stats from the system and how fast it's mining. So let's take a look at that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the screen. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. So we got from our last block, we've got 1600, 1700 megabytes per second. So pretty good. Let's remember that number. And I'm going to go ahead and fast forward and install the pci-e riser. And I'll meet you back here. Okay, so I'm back, and I've plugged in the pci-e riser into the same slot where the GPU was, and I'm going to go ahead and run jminer, and let's see what happens. So wait for it. So the first reading was 589 megabytes a second. So that's about, what is that? PCI X1 2.0. And this one was 623 megabytes per second. So that's actually above the PCI X1 Rev 2 specs. So that's kind of interesting. It's operating in between the range of 2.0 and 3.0, because 3.0 is about 980 megabytes a second throughput on a single PCIe lane. So I wonder what's going on there. But I think it's safe to conclude that the speed, the bandwidth available to your GPU, if your GPU mining, is actually really important. You can't be like a GPU miner and like use PCIe risers to connect an X1 slot into your GPU for handling your jminer, because it's just not going to work. There's not enough bandwidth available. So this is not the first time I've done this experiment, but it is the first time that I'm looking at these numbers and comparing them to the PCI revision numbers. And I find it really interesting how this motherboard is throwing some weird numbers, and I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe there's some overhead on moving the data from the drives into the GPU for processing. The idea is simply that if you're going to send 600 megabytes of data to be mined to the GPU, you're sending 100 or 200 additional megabytes of data that are not part of the mining process, or they're just part of the transactional overhead for performing the computations. I don't know. I can't really prove it, but as you can see, if you're going to be hard drive mining, you probably don't want to use a PCIe riser. Unless, of course, you're not mining that many hard drives. I mean, then I could see there being a use. But, if you're gone that far, I would just CPU mine. I find it really interesting how the bandwidth of the GPU matters so much. And this was a good experiment. And I kind of wanted the other one, so let's move on. So for the next experiment, I'm going to see if I can poke around in the BIOS and see if there's a way to improve the bandwidth going into the GPU rather than the Sonnet Allegro card, and see if we can improve the mining speed on the GPU versus letting that bandwidth get shared with the Sonnet Allegro and then just disappearing. So that's my thought. If we take a look at an X8 2.0, it should be able to support 4 gigabytes a second. And actually, I wonder, even if it's a thing where we can change the X8 into an X4 and use the X16 slot as an X16 slot, will it actually improve the bandwidth? I don't think so. PCIe Express 2.0 X8 uses 4 gigabytes, or can provide 4 gigabytes a second of bandwidth. So, unless it was that overhead that I was mentioning earlier, I don't know if it would actually improve anything. But you know, it's worth a shot. So I'm gonna go ahead and fly through time again. And next time you see me, I'm gonna have my card unplugged and back to normal, and we're gonna be looking at the BIOS, okay? Okay, so I got my USB to work. I have a wireless keyboard and a mouse here, and they didn't like being plugged into the motherboard directly, so I plugged them into one of my hubs. So let's see here. It's got a pretty nice BIOS, but I don't know where I'm looking. Let's see. Here we go. So onboard device configuration, PCI 16.1 mode. Oh, I can change it to a Gen 3. That's interesting. So actually these are mostly just changing the gen. So you wouldn't actually expect this to change the you're not changing the number of PCIe lanes here. You're just changing the revision number. So if that's the case, that's useful, but I would imagine the card would operate as fast as it possibly could. The thing that I like here, though, is you can change the X431 bandwidth, which is the this is the X16, the third X16 slot on the board. So you can force it to run in an X4 mode, which could be handy. I think the board would probably automatically configure this, but I do have an X4 card in that slot, so setting X4 mode here, it may or may not make a difference, but I should set it anyways and give it a shot. And this 16.1 mode, auto seems like it would be the way to go. But you know what? I'm here already. I'm gonna go ahead and set this for a Gen 3 because I know Gen 3 is faster. And let's see. I think we're okay. I do see some USB Type-C power settings down here, but you know, I don't think those are gonna matter for what we're doing. So it looks like you can hot plug hard drives. You just have to enable it, which is pretty cool. I don't think I would use that though. I mean, this is an external hard drive rig after all. So I think I've done the most damage that I possibly can. There's actually not the setting that I was looking for. So that leads me to wonder if perhaps, I have a feeling that it's automatic and it just doesn't matter. And even if it did matter, even if it was there, I don't think it would matter. So we're not overclocked right now. I mean, we could overclock, but yeah, and let's save that for later. Okay. You know what? I think yeah, we're done. We're done carrying this apart. Let's save. So I've changed the PCIe 4 slot into a X4 mode. So that's the additional 16 one, and then the first 16 slot, I'm gonna force it to be a Gen 3 slot, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but that's why we're doing it. I don't think anything's gonna change. I think it's gonna be the exact same speed as before. We'll find out though. So it takes an extremely long time for the system to boot because it's got to talk to all those devices. So we're going to talk to our little froggy. Hello, froggy. How are you? I'm very good, thank you. So we're finally rebooted. Oh my gosh. That took forever. Why is this thing blinking at me? Maybe it's mouse and keyboard? Okay. Let's start the miner. Same speed, huh? Well, like I said, that's what I expected. if there's no way to move those around, and actually the speed of the pci-e lane should be able to handle the type of data we need to mine anyways. This 1700 megabytes per second, like I still can't figure out why is this the hard limit. Even with the 1080 Ti, I wasn't sure why it was the hard limit. It might be because of how I've arranged my USB devices. The other thing, actually, recently I had a curious message come in from on my Burst account. So I was going to share my Burst wallet, my transaction log. I'm actually kind of happy because while I was mining last night, I hit 2 blocks within 4 hours of each other. So that was pretty nice. But you know, for some reason XSplit won't let me share this part of my screen. It's like, must be thinking like it's top secret or something, and it just won't show anything. So I'm going to go ahead and browse to the message that I want to share and read it off to you guys. So I received a message from Luxe, and this, I believe, is the creator of jminer. And so I'm going to read the message because it's not really top secret or anything. So here's the message, just some suggestions. For jminer.properties, chunkPartNonces to 960,000. Okay, so 960,000, chunkPartNonces. I don't really know what I'm operating at here. Mouse, please. Mouse, please. chunkPartNonces. Chunk. Where's chunk? Stagger size defines the number of nonces per chunk. This remote mouse keyboard stuff, serious. It's like giving me a really difficult time. Can't believe how hard it is to use a keyboard and a mouse right now. The mouse works okay. Maybe I could have sworn I just put batteries in this. Sigh. Okay, so I've got the keyboard working again, kind of. So let's go plug in 960,000 under chunkPartNonces. I'm just following the recommendations here from Luxe. Okay. logPatternConsole. Apparently my logger is not good enough. logPatternConsole, where's that? There it is. And I'm gonna do some highlight. So I'll put this text in the comments so you guys can take a look. This is direct from Luxe, and Luxe wrote jminer, I think. I'm assuming the same person. So I want to see. I want to see what's going to happen. Okay, so I got that in there. Okay, so that was point number 1. Which was jminer.properties. Let's change the chunkPartNonces and change the pattern, logPatternConsole. Number 2 is readerThreads equals 0 is already optimal. Well, go figure. We already figured that out. Number 3 is figure out how to install local wallet and consider solo mining. Well, that's what I'd really like to do. I actually want to do a video about how the pools are rigged. Seriously, the pools don't help me at all. I've earned so little from pool mining, and with the blocks that I've won, I could be a lot higher right now. But you know, I want to save that for another video. Last point number 4. My RX480 GPU got maxed out at 5,000 megabytes a second. Lots of drives at multiple controllers. Okay, so what are you saying? That you're better than me? No. Yeah, I still need to play with this rig a little bit. I haven't optimized it, I think. Like, I don't feel like I've optimized it. I know I can do better, but I don't want to optimize it before I've got my 32 drives plugged in, because then I feel like I'm going to have to re-optimize it or something. But maybe I can do that. So, okay, well, we did the thing. Let's save the video. I mean, not the video. Let's save the file. And let's restart jminer. Okay, so jminer, we got 1700 megabytes a second here. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, I don't see no yellow. Where's the yellow, dude? Wait a second. Wait a second. I'm seeing an increase in speed though. I can't read with all of these error messages. Please get out of here. Okay, so I've got the miner going, and I open up the memory tab. I just want to see where we're hitting places. CPU is okay. CPU is probably bogged down from transmitting all that data, which it's at 40% right now. Okay, so we have a new block here. We definitely have a speed increase. The effective speed right now is about 2 gigabytes a second. So what is that, a 15% increase in speed? The round time though is about the same. It's about hitting about 50 seconds. This is with 183 terabytes, 184 terabytes. So that's interesting. Huh. So it did increase the speed a little bit, but I guess I need to do a little more research. I guess this calls for another video. Actually, what's interesting now that I'm looking at it a little bit closer, I was about to wrap up the video and then I realized, you know, most of the drives finished in 31 seconds. And only one drive took 50 seconds. So what does that mean? I don't actually know. I need to look at it more. I'd say like 90% of the work was completed in 30 seconds, which is pretty good for 184 terabytes. So anyways, I want to have to look at that some more. So today we learned that using a PCIe riser for hard drive mining is a definite no-no. You're not going to get the same kind of benefit that you would get if you're a GPU mining, because the system just simply requires so much bandwidth throughput from your GPU. And the other thing we learned is that while this motherboard does support devices nicely and all sorts of things, it doesn't have the option that I was looking for, which was changing the first X16 and the second X16 into an X16 and a X4 rather than X8 and X8. But frankly, I don't think that matters. The motherboard still has all the PCIe slots and everything in the right place, and even changing that setting, it wouldn't have affected the data bandwidth of the cards. So I'm going to keep looking. I want to see if I can find better ways to do this and optimize the rig. We are still hitting 50 seconds for the number of hard drives I've got, and I don't think that number is going to increase greatly when I add more drives, but I would like to get that number down. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and maybe you learned something new. I really appreciate the message that I got from Lux, and that was a big help because 15% is not a small amount. And if you guys have any other things that you'd like to suggest to me or whatever, you know, leave me a comment or do what Lux did and send me some burst. You can also send me Bitcoin too, but burst is still my favorite, okay? And if you're interested in getting into mining, kind of like what I've done, or maybe you don't know what you want to do, but maybe you want to play around with mining, whether you're GPU mining or you're hard drive mining, or even if you kind of want a hard drive mine, but you kind of want a game, I definitely recommend this motherboard. It is extremely flexible. And I'm really happy with how it doesn't share PCIe lanes where you don't want it to be shared. I don't need the X1s. I do want my X16s open. And I do like how the M2 header doesn't share lanes with Zeta or anything like that. So I definitely recommend this motherboard. I want to put the link down in the description with my current build, and you can go ahead and try it for yourself. When you click those links that go to Amazon, you're supporting me. Amazon pays me a certain percentage of every sale, and that really helps me to make videos. Without it, I don't know what I would do. So anyways, thanks so much. And again, if you've got any questions, comments, or concerns, just leave them down in the comments and I'll try and get back to you. And I hope you'll visit me again next time and watch more videos.